Denny looking? Is he still tracking for Saturday?
Yeah, as of now, it was good to see him get through the whole practice, every single live segment. So it's a good sign, and I think it was good for him. Just kind of test it a little bit and see where he was. Obviously, his conditioning is not where it needs to be, but that's to be expected. But he showed some flashes, and that's what we've been looking for. That's what we've been waiting to see. So I'm excited to get him in the mix, get him up to speed, and we'll see how he looks on Saturday.
And what was it like just coaching your first NBA preseason game? Is there anything about it that you feel like you look forward to kind of getting more used to?
All of it, from the start to the finish, and then just going throughout the whole process. It's different, I think, when as a lead assistant you take over in the middle of the game, or if there's an issue or illness, and you coach that one game, you don't have a litany of other experiences, the other responsibilities rather that normal head coach opportunity would offer. So just the whole process. But I honestly I felt comfortable, and maybe that's because it was a preseason game, but it went well.
Wes, did everybody go today to practice? Nothing lingering from the preseason game?
No, nothing lingering. Everybody went.
When you went to Denver and had to become a more defensive guy or whatever, what was that process for you like? What was that process like for you, learning how to make that your focus, becoming kind of this expert when previously you've done a little bit of everything?
Expert's probably a little generous, so thank you. But I think it was just one of those things where you felt empowered. Coach Malone said, "Hey, take it and run with it." And you start looking around the league as far as some of the top defensive teams. What can you glean from each of those teams as it pertains to the personnel that you have? And we spent quite a bit of time, picking and choosing, but you kind of settle on certain things, and now the application part is what takes a little longer. And who knows? That's probably, whether it's 6 months, 2 months, is it a full season? I don't know. The time will tell.
When you're picking out the things that you want to put in place, are you picking out the things, or I guess where's the balance between picking out things that will suit your players and things that you want to implement, so you'll make the players kind of do whatever they need to do to get there? There's
a balance to some extent. I think the biggest thing is giving your guys a chance to succeed. And it's got to be something they believe in. So it's something, that they'll be vested in as far as the process. But, physically, are they able to do it? And I think it's tough to ask a player to do something he's just incapable of doing. I think you don't have the confidence to put yourself out there and try it. So there's a little give and take in that, but there's some non-negotiables as far as your effort, your energy, your communication. Those are easy, but some of the schematics things are more applicable to who you have on the floor and your roster, and the balance that you can kind of play in those two areas.
Was there anything reviewing preseason tape that jumped out at you that you maybe weren't expecting to have to spend? That you're like, oh, actually, I wasn't considering that. I think we need to work on that a little bit. Not really. I think the two things that we talked about at length all preseason, all through training camp, was the rebounding and our transition defense. Those are two areas that we, were lacking the other night. And the transition wasn't necessarily off live ball turnovers. So it wasn't the fact that we were, not taking care of it, so kept our turnovers down. I think 11 turnovers, 14 points, in general, that's not bad. But, some of it got away from us toward the end of the game. But those are plays I think we can look back on and look. Was it our offensive floor balance? Were we being disciplined with our crash decisions? Were we communicating as we transition back? And, all these little things that we've kind of talked about and drilled, we didn't see carryover in that area. So it's certainly the thing that we showed and talked about this morning. And we'll continue to kind of hammer away until we see results.
What were some other points of emphasis in today's practice? I know you mentioned it today would be a cerebral day.
Yeah, we had to kind of recap the other night. So not an extended film session, but poignant, touching the pick and rolls, the transition, the offensive rebounds, things that really stood out. And it was slanted strictly to the defensive end because I think, although we did do some good things, there's a lot of areas that we can improve upon. And then after that, after a day off, I think you have to just blow it out, get up and down, push them a little bit, get some conditioning, get competitive. I think that's when you get the best of your guys. So overall, it was good practice. It was a good spirit, very competitive. And that's what we're looking for.
You had said last week about that there would be times where it wouldn't wind up on the court the way you wanted it drawn up or the way you drawn it up. Did you see examples of that Tuesday where whether it was communication, just execution, it didn't start off well, but they figured it out enough to get, whether it's a stop or get a good shot, get a good look?
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where we preach it on defense, that fly around mentality where you just keep coming. And we've given our guys plenty of latitude on the offensive end to read, react. That's just the nature of the game now. Don't play in a box. Don't play with a pattern mindset. All those type things that we preach, I think you can do it on the defensive end as well. So when there are breakdowns, and there will be, you just have to keep coming, and a little bit of communication and tons of multiple effort will usually cover up some of those mistakes.
Did you see, Tress was all over the place, but were there other guys that were showing you that multiple effort stuff, the multiple effort on defense that you want to see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think sometimes the effort is there. Your heart might be in the right place as far as wanting to provide help, but then you lack purpose. So you get into those overhelp situations, which usually don't end well. So there's a fine line with, hey, I'm going to fly around. I'm just going to be active. And that's great to a certain extent, but there's got to be purpose behind it. Otherwise, you're putting your teammates in a disadvantage in most times.
Did you see, was there gambling that you need to cut out? Or
No, it's just more overhelp.
Yeah.
Where guys are trying, I think, do the right thing by helping their teammates, but you wind up once again putting yourself at a deficit because you're bringing more help to the ball that's needed, and which winds up opening the three and hurting you in other areas.
Over to Zoom for some questions, Coach. We're going to start with Dwayne Rankin.
Thank you, Coach. Obviously, you got plenty on your plate going into this first year for you, but want to ask about the non-basketball moves and what are things that you're looking to see in preseason and early in the regular season that lets you see that, okay, they're on top of this. They're if this is what they preached to us before the season, and now they're following through on making certain calls.
I think that centers, specifically around the defense. We talked at length about the level of communication we need. I think we'll get the effort. We've seen that, but just that communication component has to elevate. I think the other thing is seeing that core group develop a little bit more on court synergy, and I think it's one of those things where they just have to play more together. It's hard to do that in the preseason where you're trying to give everybody a look. Only have 4 preseason games to do that, so. It's important that we kind of make sure that we see those solid stretches now, so we're not working through some hiccups as we get into the beginning of the regular season.
Just following up defensively, how do you see that translating to the non-basketball moves that's supposed to help the defense and making sure that the offensive player just doesn't get away with what they have been getting away with in the past?
A lot of that's accountability. I think we've talked about it where it can't just come from us. I think we've talked about players owning it, and they're invested in that process, then they got to be able to hold each other accountable. Where things are somewhat simple and consistent as far as scheme, there should be no misgivings about whose responsibility that was. All 5 guys on the floor should understand that where the mistake happened, who's at fault, and then, how do we cover up, after that point. Once you get to that point where guys understand and all 5 are in sync, I think some of these errors and mistakes you'll see them start to lessen.
Let's go over to Chris Miller.
Hey, Wes, without obviously having the full group in camp and this part of preseason, though, can you forecast the depth that you think you have on this team? Are you too deep at every position?
I don't know if there's anything such as too deep. I think our depth, it's a weapon, so it's great. But, at times it might be a hiccup as far as guys don't see extended minutes. But that's our job to figure it out. So I'd rather have the guys we have the depth that we have and the flexibility to play the way we can than not. So I look at it as a plus.
And in terms of just the athletic part of just having guys that just can compete with the next team athletically, I know this is your first year though, but in terms of your scouting this team in the past, do you feel like you have an elite athletic group that can compete with really anybody in the league?
I don't know about elite athletic. I think there are some elite athletes on this team. I think collectively there's a cerebral advantage. I think we have guys who've been in big moments, played deep in the playoffs, so that there's that poise, veteran presence. I think that those guys bring. You have that youthful, energetic spirit, with the younger core, and then you got guys who do it every night. So we're going to lean on all those three areas. At some point, any of those guys from 1 through 11 can help win us a game. So I think it's important that we value that, and they understand the value they bring. It's not just on the top 2 or 3 players. It's our strength in the numbers.
Thanks, Wes. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go over to Neil.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious what your philosophy is on, watching the film. Obviously you guys have time right now where you can, do it in a group setting. Later in the season, are you somebody that's like, okay, well, we're going to have our video guys send out clips to players and let them watch it on their own? What's the balance there, and what's the pro and con of each?
I think you have to hit them in a number of different ways. I mean, the group film sessions are great because I think it's a great learning tool. The individual sessions, I think you get a little bit more transparency. When you talk to a guy, they're more apt to open up and really kind of, hey, stop, go back. I didn't understand. You get a little bit more depth in your conversation when it's just one-on-one. The defense mechanism sometimes comes down, which is great. I think at times you also the small groups, whether it's the bigs, put them together. So all they're going to do is complain about the smalls, and the smalls vice versa. That's just the nature of it. So I think there's opportunities to do it a number of different ways, but keep it fresh, keep it different, because I think if you always have to go over here in the theater room, it's a great place to watch film, but now it feels like a classroom, and it's a long drawn out season. So you don't want to necessarily have that feel day in and day out. I think it loses a little bit of its luster. So just trying to find different ways. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 clips on the court before practice. It's hitting a guy on a plane, any opportunity you can. And of course, we have the technology now to push clips out. So whether it's scouting tape, personnel tape, or even their minutes with notations, they can get that instantly, and you can kind of give in-time feedback. So it's a great useful tool, but at times you don't want to inundate the guys to the point where they kind of get that glazed look over their face. But you still have to kind of hammer away sometimes and say, look, this is important.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Any other questions for Coach?
The NBA preseason, kind of like what you want to get out of it through your several years in the NBA so far?
Well, me personally, I didn't play that much my first couple of years, so it was time for me to actually get out there and play. Just try to learn as much as you can, even though it's a little different, I'm not going to lie, than regular season, because most guys aren't playing this and that, but just try to get the best out of it and the most out of it.
What do you think led to what was a pretty good offensive game there for you in the opener?
Just trying to make the right reads. The way I play, I try to get my guys the ball when they need it, find the open guy, and if I'm open, I'll take the shot. So just trying to make the right reads out there for my team.
And as a point guard, what do you think about just the pick and roll partners you have and Daniel Gafford and Montrezl Harrell, and of course Tom Stein?
Yeah, for sure. All of them are lob catching bigs. All of them can pop and shoot pretty well. So for me, I just got to try to get downhill and make something happen for them, whether that's drawing the big, throwing the lob, or kicking it out for a 3 or even a mid-range jump shot. So for me, it makes my job a lot easier.
I asked Daniel what type of teacher Wes is, because he said he's obviously still doing a lot of teaching and stuff. He said he's the type of guy who really makes you kind of think about the position and everything like that. Does that sound familiar to you? And what is that kind of? How would you describe him as a teacher?
For sure. He does a great job of communicating what he wants done. In the league, that's probably the best thing for younger players or pretty much anybody. Communicate what you want done so we can go out there and do it. And he does a great job of putting us in the right positions that he wants us and just teaching us what he wants us to do pretty much. It started since we first got here, probably like early September. A lot of us were out here, and he really had hands-on with us. So it helped a lot how communicative he is.
Sorry, it sounds really basic, but when you say he's good at communicating exactly what I mean, is that just like he's very direct, or he shows you? It's in addition.
Both. He shows us, he tells us. If we mess up, he'll stop the play, show us what we should have done better. Even in film, he tells us what we can do better, even if it's a good play or if it's a bad play. Obviously, he'll let us know, but he just makes sure we know he makes sure we know what we're supposed to do out there.
Did he have any specific message for you coming out of the preseason game, being able to review stuff?
No, not yet. We watched a little film. I messed up on a couple of defensive clips, but it's all learning. So he just obviously he told us that we watched film and we just try to correct things that we messed up on in preseason.
Aaron, I'm old. Can you explain crypto to me?
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
You have a teammate that's big into this.
Yeah, I haven't asked. He explains it every so often, but I'm not really into that.
Is it something you're curious about, or do you give him the Heisman immediately and say, just don't?
No, I'll for sure ask him about it. Probably here shortly, and so he can explain it again. But yeah, that's not my thing.
All right, so he wanted to be paid in crypto. Is that something you would ever do?
Maybe if I figure out what it is and how it works, but right now I'm good with just the money.
How often is so often? It's every so often that he's explaining. Is that like once a week? He's like, guys.
I mean, I feel like everybody asks him pretty much every other week to explain it because he's posting about it on Twitter, Instagram. But hey, it's good for him. Something he really enjoys doing and talking about. So that's good to have in your back pocket.
Hey, Aaron, you had a couple of nice floaters in the game the other day. How big is the floater? How big a component is the floater in your offensive arsenal?
I mean, I just try to take what the defense gives me. I probably use it the most getting to the basket, but I can shoot a jump shot too or pass it. So I just try to take what the defense gives me, and whatever opens up, I just try to make a read out of it and pretty much react.
Is it a shot that you feel like you've cut the hone, like to continue to be effective in the league?
No, I could shoot a jump shot and be just as effective. It's just something I like to shoot, I guess.
Any questions for Aaron via Zoom?
Yeah, so we got to, they haven't posted the
All right. Looks